Welcome to the Tesla Power Podcast. This is the Tesla Energy community covering solar panels, solar roof, and Powerwall for your home. I'm Aaron Brady. Today, let's talk about fire suppression required for indoor batteries. Let's talk about total electric supply needs for our home here. Let's dig into the solar tile specs again. Let's cover gutters for solar roof and my hack job on the last episode. Let's do it. So we'll kick off the pod with community input. You can participate by leaving a comment below. You can link your own YouTube videos, or you can call and leave a message at 203-816-5150. Email teslapowerpodcast@gmail.com. Now, something you can do very quickly is record a video question on YouTube. And I just wanted to step through that really quickly because it's surprisingly easy. Like, this stuff works, very, very easy. So what you can do is record that question and then send a private link so I can put it in the show. Let's do a quick sample question so you can see how it's done. Let me pull up that camera insert. Just got to make sure the emulator is there. Oh, of course, it's just showing up. Whatever. I'll get better at this one day. All right, so I see. So that's the home energy thing, but we don't want to do that. We want to do YouTube. So let's bring it up. The first thing we want to do is record the question. So let's go to the video portion of it. I'll just turn the camera around so it can see me, and I will say my question. Tesla Power Podcast, I have a question that I hope you can answer. And then, of course, I'm going to take that video, and I'm going to put it up. I see that it stopped mirroring, which is even more awesome. Okay, so it's back now, which is great. Let's just bring it. So I can see the preview of it, but it's not showing here for some reason. All right, so we're going to go over to YouTube. We're going to hit that plus sign. I'm going to upload a video. I need to select more videos, so this is the one that I've just recorded. Done. Now I can select it from the list. I'll go next. I'll just call it TPP question. And I want that visibility unlisted. I don't want it to be a public video for everybody to be able to search. It can't be private because I still need to send a link, but I'll go next, not made for kids, and I'll upload the video. I want to go and I want to see that video. Once it's done uploading and processing, I can then just take that link and post it as a question. So right here, share video, copy link. So now I can go to my subscriptions. Awesomely, I'm not subscribed to myself. So let's go look for Tesla Power Podcast right there. Let's get ourselves subscribed. And I'll go to the last video. And I will comment. I have a test question. And then I will paste the link. Boom. So now on this Tesla Power Podcast, I should be able to go and look at that question in the comments. So there we go. I have a question, and there's my video question that would then play on YouTube, which is pretty exciting. So if you've got questions that you can submit by a video, since this is a video format, it'd be kind of awesome. All right, so let's head to our first question. Let me just get it inserted here. Being my own engineer, it's pretty amazing. Working out great. So our first question, well, it's a comment really. It was on episode 30, and from the first person probably to ever get to the end of one of my videos. Nice work. Michael Outlaw writes, quote, "Is it me, or does this episode seem incomplete?" End quote. Now, very astute, Michael. I lopped off the whole last third of episode 30. So you're the only one to comment on it, though. So I want to give you the credit. Thank you. But I'm going to cover what I missed off the last episode by getting into the solar tile detail again. I'll cover my PTO status update and talk about the gutters for the solar roof. I've got some video clips included. Next up, we have Bill Gilbrook. He is back. And he was continuing the conversation with Northampton Arts Council, asking about additional detail on the Northampton install. Quote, "Eversource install in Massachusetts, ? Powerwall 2, ? Using backup switch or gateway 2, ? Indoor battery install, ? Fireproofing required, ? Northampton Arts Council replied that Tesla's installing. Eversource is my electricity utility supplier. Outdoor battery install. If indoor, fireproof cabinet required. I don't know about switch yet or gateway yet." Now, I replied that this was the first I'd ever heard of this requirement. I wanted to know, is this a local ordinance, or is this, something else required? And Bill answers that the state of Massachusetts has this requirement at the state level, and then Northampton Arts Council adds that it was written, quote, "after a fire in eastern Massachusetts," end quote. Now, because I live in the Tesla bubble, I sometimes forget how the outside world sees lithium-ion batteries as dangerous. And, it's true. If they're not thermally controlled, they can be dangerous. So, I wanted to see what the fire was all about. How big was the battery? Who made the battery? All those details. But the only battery fire I could find was this laptop battery fire in Brockton, Massachusetts, back in 2017. So let's bring that article actually full screen so you guys can read it. And of course, I've got links to all of these things in the subjects below, or in the show notes below. Quote, "Brockton, Mass. Firefighters dealt with several small fires and burned a hole through a coffee table inside a Brockton home on Carl Avenue, all thanks to a laptop battery that exploded. Rodney and Carol Johnson of Brockton told WCVB that the battery exploded after 2 hours of charging. The battery was purchased online for $11.32, end quote. Now, if this is really the genesis of the fireproof memo, that sucks. It was clearly a cheap battery with no charging or thermal management. Nothing like the storage systems that this memo addresses. On top of that, I would expect that putting a battery into a fireproof cabinet would make the thermal management harder, right? You're enclosing it in, you're keeping all the heat in. But I don't know. Let's look at the ordinance to see how it's written, to get an idea, how that ordinance, is supposed to be implemented, shall we say. So I've got that here. Let's go ahead and take it full screen, actually. And we can see here that it only applies to storage systems. Does it say here? Right. It only applies to storage systems larger than 20 kilowatt hours. Now, that's ridiculous because that laptop battery, there's no way it was even a kilowatt hour. Like, it was a tiny little laptop battery. That's just kind of crazy. But you also might remember that I have PTO stuck because I'm above that similar threshold, the 20 kilowatt threshold. And, these laws have been passed when 20 kilowatts of power and 20 kilowatt hours of storage were massive numbers. And no one could imagine that they would be installed in homes. And, I don't know. The sad thing about this memorandum is that it was written not that long ago, June 7th, 2021. That's earlier this year. I don't know. I just feel like it's a bit arcane. And, times, they are changing. These laws need to change too. And this memorandum just seems silly to me. If they had only one Powerwall at the Northampton Arts Council installed, then no fireproof cabinet would be required, even though it's many times bigger than that laptop battery. But because there are 2 power walls, the storage capacity exceeds the 20 kilowatt hours, and they either need fireproof cabinet, a fireproof cabinet, which I think is a terrible idea, or they're forced to put the batteries outside. I'd say putting them outside isn't the worst thing, but because Massachusetts is so far north, the batteries will be in very cold temperatures during winter months, which lowers their capacity. And that could be just when they're needed the most. Maybe a nor'easter knocks out power and a home's dependent on batteries for a few hours or a few days. This could be the difference between having enough margin to make it through without losing power and not enough margin. Maybe they need the electricity to run their gas or their oil furnace and they're left without heat. You gain one bit of safety and you lose another. So I'm not sure this ordinance or this memorandum are for good reason. I was really surprised to hear about it in the first place. I am curious though, if you're a resident of Massachusetts, how do you see this? Is this a welcome regulation that makes sense? I don't know. Are you like me? Do you feel like it's outdated and it needs revising? Comment below. Let me know. All right. Next up, we've got Randy Hawkins. He's back. He came through with a photo of the new solar tile label showing additional detail on the tile's technical specification. Let's read his comment. Quote, the parts themselves list the P max at 72 watts, plus or minus 5%, and remarkably lists the VSYS as 1,000 volts. That's the system voltage at 1,000 volts. Do you have a link for the spec sheet for the SR72T2 high voltage tiles I'm having installed? And I shared a spec sheet. Let's pull that up. I have that right over here. No, that's... Oh, it might take me a second to get to the spec sheet. But this is the label. So give me 1 second to pull up that spec sheet because I think it's going to be quite helpful to compare with what's on the label. So if I just open up another tab, I can open that pretty quickly. And really where I'm going with this is that the spec sheet that I shared is a little bit out of date already. And that's tremendous. That means that, Tesla is really doing a good job of innovating and iterating. They're going very quickly. What I can show you while we're waiting on that is, I'll take the sticker full screen again. And you can see here the Pmax at 72, the VSYS at 1,000 volts. And, you might know that home systems are limited to 600 volts. So the fact that they're 1,000 volts is an interesting, development, because if you're using a higher voltage, you can use lower amperage, which requires, thinner cables, thinner gauge cables. And those thinner gauge cables can save you money. Basically, the whole point of it is that you don't need as much copper, so you can save on the material cost of the system. This isn't cooperating, unfortunately. But what I did want to do is show where I got that information that systems are 600 volts. So here under solar panel talk, they have 600 volts versus 1,000 volts. They're pointing out that the even though you're able to provide that kind of efficiency, they're not going to allow you to install those kinds of systems. They're going to limit you to 600 volts. But overall, what I want to do is let's pull up the calculator, and we can start to take a look at how much efficiency has been gained. So let's do a little insert here. So the original tiles that I have on my house, those are 58.47 watts, and we're going to subtract 72 from that. So the delta is 13 and 0.53. So if we divide that by our 58.47, we can see that it's a 23% increase over the old tiles. I mean, that is tremendous. That's almost 25%. And if that's going to be our rate of, increase, then, just imagine what it's going to be in, I don't know, 4, 5, 6 years, 10 years. So we've already taken a look at that label. We already talked about solar panel talk. And, the whole takeaway here is that Tesla can realize some cost efficiency. I'm just wondering if this doesn't just allow them the option of going commercial with these same products. We had talked in a few episodes ago about Tesla installing solar roofs on public buildings. But if we go back to the spec sheet, you'll see that it notes that the tiles are for a 600 volt system. I can't pull up the spec sheet here, which is a little bit painful, but I have a link for it in the show notes below. And if residential systems are still limited to 600 volts at the moment, it's possible that Tesla are just increasing the voltage capacity of the unit to use in the other market, in the commercial market. We would expect to then see an updated spec sheet on the string inverter to confirm that the whole system has gone up to 1,000 volts. But I don't expect that that is the case at all. Again, they're going to be limited to 600 volts in residential installations. I will say, though, that just the max wattage increase is exciting. It shows evolution of the product. It shows that it's developing and it's becoming more mature and has a wider use case. But let's see if we can't tease out some more exciting news about the solar tiles, going forward, again, with community input. All right, let's head over to the next question. This next comment is from DSlay04. They're pointing out that I have overcalculated, or that I may have overcalculated my electricity generation requirement. They comment, quote, "What was the total electric needs? I think you're forgetting about time," end quote. Now, time definitely matters. And I can absolutely see why you think I'm forgetting to calculate the time value of my solar system production. A 30 kilowatt array should be enough to power a whole neighborhood, as long as the excess energy can be stored and the electricity can be used, throughout the day, not just when the electricity is being generated, which would infer that the rest of that electricity is lost. But I have a few things working against me that'll prevent my system from producing at max capacity for most of the year. The biggest of them is that I'm pretty far north. Now, if I pull up my layout, I don't have my layout prepared. Anyway, if I pulled up my layout, you'd be able to see that I have solar capacity installed on the north side of our house in 2 sections. The main section that's on the south side still generates a bit at the moment. The main section that's on the north side still generates a bit at the moment. But as the sun gets lower in the sky, it's going to be shaded for most of the day. And, that's only going to get worse. But that's not the only thing working against me. It gets even worse than that because Tesla uses string inverters. And that means any partial shading on any individual solar tile in that string reduces the production of all of the tiles in that string, even if all the rest of the tiles are getting full sun. This means that I have to oversize my solar array to get the actual production required to cover my needs. So yes, my system might be 13.5 kilowatts, but I'm not generating anywhere near 13.5 kilowatts of production except for in the summer months. So where we can see the estimated electricity generation in the system is in the purchase contract. Now, I do have that prepared, so let's pull that up. So right at the bottom of the first page, you can see here, I can't highlight it, but you see that they estimate the output to be 11,871 kilowatt hours in year 1. That's this last number right over here. Now, that's the best it will ever be. And the contract points out that what we can expect in production loss over the next few years increases over time. So let's take a look at that. That's just on page 2. The solar roof will be at least 95% of peak rated power specified in the solar roof's data sheet at 5 years after your solar roof is installed. It will decline by no more than 0.5% per year for the following 20 years. End quote. So you can see, that part of why I need such a large system is because it's going to be producing less over time. So let's answer that other part of your question. How much electricity do we need at the house? So I have my electricity bills from the year preceding the install. We've added all of it up and have the following usage per year: 18,709 kilowatt hours. That's what we used the year before we got the solar system. Now, I can't use our current solar system. Well, I can't use the current electricity bills because we're pulling a lot less from the utility than we used to. I can do it in the Tesla app. I didn't do that ahead of time. So we're going to use this historical number just as an indication of where we need to be. But let's bring up that calculator again so we can start doing some math. Now, what we want to do is we want to see how much of my electricity needs are covered by my expected production. So expected production in year one, 11,871 divided by 18,709. So it covers a little more than 60%. Of course, I'm not sharing the calculator. It's really small there. Bring it a little bit bigger. So let's do that math again. So 11,871 is what they expect I'll produce in the first year, divided by my actual usage from the previous 12 months, previous year, and we get 63%. So it covers about 60% of our usage. Now, that's at max production, and that is, not considering how our electricity usage will change over time. With our current production, our current usage, we're not able to cover 100% of our needs. Add to that the efficiency loss when storing the electricity in the battery. I cover that in several of the videos. We lose about 15% of the electricity. And you get down to only about half of our electricity covered. Then you add to that the solar tile efficiency loss over time, and we'll cover less than half of our current need. Add to that increased usage, maybe for another electric car. Just as our kids get older, they use more electricity. They have more devices. They have more need to, use electricity. We'll probably end up doing, using the dryer more often, that kind of stuff. All of that means that we are blowing our need out of the water. Like, we're not even getting close to producing what we need to consume, even with a 13.5 kilowatt system. And this is why we need to oversize our system so dramatically. Going from 13 to almost 30 kilowatts. That's tremendous, and all of that just to cover our current needs. It simply can't cover our future needs, even at 30 kilowatts. So we're going to need something more than just solar to generate the electricity that we need. And I think that something is going to be wind in some form. Now, I really think that we need to dig into that in a future episode. Because, there are definitely some downsides to a spinning turbine, probably ordinances, local ordinances that prevent you from putting up wind turbines, for example. But there are some very interesting technologies that are available now that don't require that kind of form factor. But DSLay04, thank you for your question. It's totally legit, and I really hope that I've helped make it clearer, so you can see that I'm being pretty accurate with my estimates. Anyway, thank you to Michael Outlaw, to Bill Gilbrook, Northampton Arts Council, Randy Hawkins, and DSLay04 for their input on this podcast. I'm looking for the first person to submit their video question. You can also, of course, comment below. You can call 203-816-5150 and leave a message, or you can email teslapowerpodcast@gmail.com. Let's take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll cover a bit of news. So Benzinga posts another press release from a new third-party installer for the Tesla solar roof. Quote, Tesla solar roof installation is now available in the Twin Cities area from Midwest Roof and Solar, a top-voted Minneapolis roofing company. Tesla's trained and certified Midwest roofers in California at Tesla's Tesla solar roof headquarters to ensure the quality and standard expected by the Tesla brand, end quote. Now, this is a continuation of the long march of third-party installers that'll build very successful businesses or supercharge already successful businesses on the Tesla brand using the solar roof. You know, I had noted a couple podcasts ago that the solar roof is now available nationwide, and that's made possible because of a deep bench of these third-party installers that are getting trained and ready to take this product to market. What I don't mention often is the ability for these third-party installers to offer ancillary services to the solar roof. Roof repairs, gutter systems, property drainage, construction additions, any number of other products and services around the roofing and construction industries. Something to watch. Something to watch. All right, next up, we have another Electrek article. Electrek's reporting on Solar Review's 2021 ranking of solar manufacturers. Let's take this full screen. Quote, Solar Reviews, a U.S.-based independent independent comparison website for solar panel brands and installations, has released its first solar manufacturer ranking system. Here are the top 10 solar panel manufacturers in 2021, end quote. And if we just scroll down, we can see their list right here. LG Solar, Q-Cells, Longi Solar, Canadian Solar, SunPower, Jinko, JA, REC, Trina, and Panasonic. I find it funny that Panasonic's very last, and I haven't heard of a lot of these, so I find that quite interesting. But while I generally focus on Tesla, it is worth remembering that the solar cells are provided by Panasonic. They, of course, barely make this list, but it does leave room for Tesla to bring on other manufacturers to provide the cells and panels for their residential solar products. It's not just to increase quality, right, but to alleviate production or supply bottlenecks. Overall, though, I like reminding myself that it's not all Tesla all the time, and that there are other options available that provide outstanding value for homeowners looking to go solar. Now, I've mentioned that my brother-in-law's system, I've mentioned it several times before. It uses LG panels with Solar Edge inverters, and it's been a fantastic value for him and his family. It's slightly smaller capacity. I think it's a 12 kilowatt system. Mine's a 13.5, but it outproduces my system handily. And that's part of him being fortunate that his house has the right orientation for the different panel systems, but it's also because they designed the system in a better way. He has microinverters that allow panels to be as efficient as possible, whereas mine are in string inverters, so a lack of efficiency in one panel in the string will reduce the efficiency of the whole system. So all of that to say, this competition and the expansion of the market are going to bring tons of great options to consumers, and it's only going to get better over the next decade. All right, next up, we have Torque News, and in the vein we were just talking about, Torque News publishes an article on a study confirming that renewables will dominate the energy market in the coming decades. Let's take it full screen. Quote, new research from the University of Oxford suggests that even without government support, four technologies, solar voltaics, wind, battery storage, and electrolyzers to convert electricity to hydrogen, are about to be so cheap that they'll be dominating world energy production, end quote. Well, this article doesn't even touch the hydrogen electrolyzer. It focuses in on the modes that directly relate to Tesla, the solar, the wind, and batteries. I continue to assert that Tesla will offer a residential wind product. But this article only touches on solar and battery and storage prices and how costs for those are going to be driven down to become cheaper than alternatives without the need for government incentives, because those are Tesla products currently. Now, newsflash, this is already the case for solar and wind. We just need battery portion, the battery portion of this to catch up. And we're going to be able to provide renewable energy at a tremendously lower cost than any alternative. It's just going to make financial sense without any incentives, including hydrogen. We could probably go into that. There's lots of other videos on YouTube that go into why hydrogen is less efficient as an energy mode. In fact, Answers with Joe does a great video on that, and I'll put that in the link, put that in the show notes as well. Go watch that, because that one's awesome. It points out that it won't even be close. So why do we have all of these incentives at the moment? Well, some of it's in the name of energy security. You want to make sure that you have the energy capacity to keep your population reliably supplied with the energy that they've come to expect. Some of it's political patronage. Can't get around that. Some of it's environmental responsibility, but mostly it's a huge waste. The market's going to take care of this. It's going to be the cheapest, best option, and you're just not going to have any other options. Or you're not going to have any other options that make sense, is the point. And, Tony Seba is another one. He's been covering why solar and wind with batteries are just going to crush any other energy mode. Another great deep dive, and maybe something we should cover in this podcast, in fact. But let's take another quick break. When we come back, I'll redo the bit that was missing from the last podcast. I'll have an update on our solar roof installation and PTO. All right, so we got an update this week on our application with United Illuminating. There are still problems with the latest version of the application, and there was no updated drawing. I mean, you'll see here that there's just tons of red ink in this application. And I don't know, I'm afraid we're not going to get this moving anytime soon. I may need to start pressing Tesla to get this application done correctly for fear of it just simply never getting done. I'm sure I'm being dramatic, but still, it's just not moving forward fast enough. We also got new gutters on the house. You'll remember that Tesla took off the gutter guards during the install, and our gutter system was undersized for the new roof. So we got new gutters put in. I've got some video. Let me play some of that. You can see this is the look at them and the roof. They look great, Some people are afraid that the larger gutter system is going to look odd, but the proportions really work well. And the creative director wife didn't even notice. She's got an eye for detail. So that gives you a bit of perspective on how much difference the new gutters make in the appearance of the home. I've got a second clip here from the back of the house. This shows the addition on the north side of the house. There are active tiles on this, and you can see the shading. Half the roof right now is shaded, and that's because the sun's so low in the sky. Zooming in a little bit on those gutters, and then it's going to pivot around to the the north side of our vaulted ceiling. That south side of the vaulted ceiling, though, has no active tiles. These are all inactive tiles. But we're going to get a look at that gutter guard and, what it's doing to keep the leaves out of the gutter, very important. And as promised, I'll get some video of some heavy rain, so we can see the system in action. You can see how it's working with the new roof. It's very interesting how that rain just shoots off the roof, and you need that wider gutter to be able to catch it without it just overshooting. But that's it for updates this week. I think we finally got through the whole podcast. I didn't lop off the last third. We are coming up on our 6-month review, so we can see how the solar system's producing, how it matches up with the contracted amount, see how our utility bills have decreased, and hopefully we'll get PTO before the end of the year. And that will end episode 31 of the Tesla Power Podcast. I'm your Tesla Residential Energy Community Organizer, Aaron Brady. Let's do this on the next video.